Hello, BookTube. I have a little mail haul to share with you. It came late in the day. It was a bright, sunny, warm day here. I went on long walks with the dog and spent a lot of time reading and writing on the couch instead of holed up by a space heater. But all the time in the back of my mind, I was thinking I wonder where the mail is, and it just wasn't coming. And then finally, it all came long after sunset. But better late than never. It's not a very big shipment. It does end with a box, but I'm glad it's not a very big shipment because, as you can see, the ramparts are growing. What I do every week, what I like to do, is make columns of the books and not move them or sort them until the last mail haul on Saturday night. And this is getting quite out of hand already. There isn't much room to make these any bigger. So small mail hauls in this case would be a blessing. But let's see what we have here. And what might be of interest. This one is tiny, from W.W. Norton, who are great. Okay, it's a slim volume of poetry. It comes out in late May by Donna Massini, called 4:30 Movie. Okay, so this is just 50 pages of maybe cinema-related movies? Yeah, it looks like it's cinema-related movies. Cinema-related verses, or whatever that was. Okay, well, all right, it's a bit of a strange start, because poetry's not my thing. Contemporary poetry, anyway, but let's see. Let's see what we have here. At the old Open Letters Monthly, where I was the managing editor for a long, long time. I'm sure most of you who are watching these things have heard me talk about it. We had a poetry editor. We had a poetry person who not only oversaw our poetry books, but also found reviewers, for some of them anyway. She did not make the transfer to Open Letters Review, so right now I don't have anybody handling poetry. And I'd very much like that. So if you have a yen to review some contemporary poetry, if you're perhaps a poet yourself, you let me know. You sing out in the comments field. This next one is a novel, though. Translated from the French. It's by Natasha Apana, and it's Waiting for Tomorrow. Rather elegant cover that isn't really coming out in this crappy lighting. I don't think I'm going to have anything but crappy lighting to offer for a while. It looks like it's going to be snow and sleet for the next 4 days. We'll see if that actually happens. But anyway, what have we got here? So what is... when did Natasha Apana write this? 2015. Okay. So what have we got here? Anita is waiting for Adam to be released from prison. They met 20 years ago at a New Year's Eve party in Paris, a city where they both felt out of place. He, as a recent arrival from the provinces, and she as an immigrant from the island of Mauritius. They quickly fell in love, married, and moved to a village in southwestern France to live on the shores of the Atlantic with their little girl, Laura. She's an immigrant from Mauritius. That's a little strange. In contemporary fiction, a detail like that is not going to crop out of nowhere. I'd be willing to bet the author probably knows somebody from Mauritius. In order to earn a living, Adam has left behind his love of painting to become an architect. And Anita has turned her desire to write into a job freelancing for a local newspaper. Good luck! Over time, the monotony of daily life begins to erode the bonds of their marriage. The arrival of Adele, an undocumented immigrant from Mauritius, again with the Mauritius, they hire to care for Laura, sparks artistic inspiration for both Adam and Anita, as well as a renewed interest in their relationship. But this harmony will prove to be short-lived, brought down by their separate transgressions of Adele's privacy and a subsequently tragic turn of events. Okay, I like a lot of that. The stranger comes into a household. That motif is always fun. Not fun, you know what I mean. It's always interesting. It has an inherent weight of interest on its own that never deserts it, whether it's done well or not. But I also like the part before that. What was it? Over time, the monotony of daily life begins to erode the bonds of their marriage. That's very French. That's a very nuanced way of looking at relationships that you don't often see. The relationships, especially married relationships in contemporary fiction, tend to be in such primary colors, such crayon colors, that that sounds interesting. That probably won't take more than 10 pages in the book, but I bet those would be an interesting 10 pages. But who is Natasha Aponow when she's at home? Natasha Aponow was born in Mauritius. Okay. She's the author of an award-winning novel, The Last Brother, which has been translated to 16 languages, and she works as a journalist and lives in France. So have any of you read The Last Brother? Or God forbid, Waiting for Tomorrow? I would love to know. This is just a tiny thing. Jeez, it's only about 140 pages long. But I'll be interested. I'll be very interested. I think I might have requested that book based on that plot summary. It sounds a little familiar. But anyway, let's move on here. So we have a slim volume of poetry and a slim novel translated from the French. So we're due for a Steve book. I'm not standing around impatiently waiting for one, but one would be nice. Oh my. Oh goodness. Okay, this is due. It came out in January, so it's out already. It's from Harvard University Press, and it is a history book. Boy, oh boy. This is by Herrick Chapman, and it is France's Long Reconstruction, In Search of the Modern Republic. That, if I recognize him, that is Charles de Gaulle on the cover. It's hard to tell, because it's a grainy, archival photo. Harvard, kindly stop doing that. I realize these things are bankrolled by an endowment. And that's great. And this is probably, well, I mean, we'll read all about it, but this is probably groundbreaking original research. And I realize that there are only a handful of bookstores where this is actually going to be on the shelf, new, for sale to the public. For instance, here in Boston, this won't even get shipped to the Barnes & Noble in Boston proper. I'd be willing to bet that probably 2 copies will be sent to the Harvard bookstore in Cambridge, and they might sell. But the number of bookstores like that in the country is smaller now than it's ever been, until you have to go back to the 1780s. So I realize that a mass appeal audience is probably the last item on your checklist, but that is not an eye-catching cover. But anyway, let's see. I mean, if you have to stare at the cover because you can't make out enough detail to tell whether or not that's Charles de Gaulle. Anyway, let's see here. At the end of World War II, France's greatest challenge was to repair a civil society torn asunder by Nazi occupation and total war. Recovery required the nation's complete economic and social transformation, but just what form this new France should take remained the burning question at the heart of French political combat until the Algerian War ended over a decade later. A political combat. Love it. Herrick Chapman charts the course of France's long reconstruction from 1944 to 1962, offering fresh insights into the ways the expansion of state power, intended to spearhead recovery, produced fierce controversies at home and unintended consequences abroad in France's crumbling empire. Okay. All right, and who is... Please tell me this is not a translation. No? Good. Okay, no, it's not. All right, so this is... he is an associate professor of history and French studies at New York University. Okay. All right, fantastic. Serious history. Serious, non-commercial history. So, great. Let's see here. There's also a period I don't know a lot about, so that'll be fun to learn. All right, this next one is Simone St. James, The Broken Girls, from Berkeley. This is a thriller of some kind. It's a breakout suspense novel. Vermont, 1950. Oh, God. There's a place for the girls whom no one wants. The troublemakers, the illegitimate, the too smart for their own good. Yes, that place is BookTube. It's called Idlewild Hall. And in the small town where it's located, there are rumors that the boarding school is haunted. 4 roommates bond over their whispered fears, their budding friendship blossoming until one of them mysteriously disappears. And then we jump forward to Vermont in 2014. As much as she's tried, journalist Fiona Sheridan cannot stop revisiting the events surrounding her elder sister's death. 20 years ago, her body was found dumped in the overgrown fields near the ruins of Idlewild Hall. And though her sister's boyfriend was tried and convicted of the murder, Fiona can't shake the suspicion that something was never right about the case. When Fiona discovers that Idlewild Hall is being restored by an anonymous benefactor, she decides to write a story about it. But a shocking discovery during the renovations will link the loss of her sister to secrets that were meant to stay hidden in the past and a voice that won't be silenced. Okay. All right. Okay. So a voice that won't be silenced and the anonymous benefactor, I'm guessing that those are going to be connected with the 4 roommates. That the 4 roommates are all going to play major parts in this book. But this is by Simone St. James, who is an award-winning author, written a bunch of books. She wrote her first ghost story about a haunted library when she was in high school and spent 20 years behind the scenes in the television business before leaving to write full-time. Oh, she writes full-time. Wow. Okay. All right. And then we've got a big, thick package. I find it hard to believe that it's a single book because I think I know all of them already. No, okay. Oh, fantastic. Oh, boy. I love the folks. Oh, man. Fantastic. All right. You might remember that I got a fantasy novel just recently, just last week, by John Sprunk that was the 3rd in a series, and here the first and second, so that I can just start. Book number 1 is Blood and Iron, which I read and remember really liking. And then book number 2 is Storm and Steel, which I think I once upon a time got and never actually read it. So I am behind on these, I'm pretty sure. This is the Book of Black Earth, Part 1 and Part 2. And then Part 3 is coming out. Part 3, we just got... I'm looking at these ramparts, but that was last week's ramparts that they were part of. Oh, God. I'm drowning in books. And then the last one is this box. Last one for today is a big flat box. So probably a big picture book of some kind. All right. These are Unbound Galleys, 2 of them. So they're not even ready for ARCs yet, or maybe the publicist didn't have any ARCs left. Oh boy. Okay. Great. All right. So this first one, I requested both of these because they both seem fantastic. This first one comes out. Do you want to help me out here? This comes out in the spring, I believe, but why are you not telling me? Why are you not telling me? All right, well, this thing doesn't tell me, but that's all right. This comes out in the spring. I think May. And this is The Waterless Sea by Christopher Pinney, and it's a history of mirages. Let me read you a bit here. Mirages have long astonished travelers of the sea and beguiled thirsty desert voyagers. Traditional Chinese and Japanese poetry and art depict the above-horizon superior mirage, or fata morgana, as exaltations of clam monsters. Indian sources relate mirages to the thirst of gazelles, a metaphor for the futility of desire. Starting in the late 18th century, mirages became a symbol in the West of Oriental despotism, a negative but also enchanted emblem. But the mirage motif is rarely simply condemnatory. More often, our obsession with mirages conveys a sense of escape, of fascination, of a desire to be deceived. In Waterless Sea is the first book devoted to the theories and histories of mirages. The author navigates a sinuous pathway through the mysterious and evanescent terrain, showing how mirages have affected politics, culture, science, and religion, and how we continue to learn from their sublimity. I have seen them. In deep desert travel, I have seen them. Not a shimmering on the horizon, but a full-blown mirage. And it's a weird feeling. When you're out, at the times that I've seen them, I was traveling far from non-desert terrain. where it's like when you're out on the open ocean. You're a single minute's bad decision away from dying. You have to do everything right, because if you're in a place that will kill you if you don't. And that's not always a big problem, especially if you're traveling somewhere where you don't really have to worry about raiders or pirates at sea. But the times when I have experienced them, when I've seen them, they confused me. Not so much the phenomenon itself, but I knew some of the history. I mean, you read history the way I do, you're going to encounter people encountering them all the way back to Herodotus. And always there's the element of the siren song of a mirage, that you're going to dash off towards them, or you're going to drink too much of your water because you see one in the distance and you know that relief is within sight, one day away, one march of an afternoon, and you'll have all the water you need, so you don't need to ration it anymore. When the times that I saw them, I never understood those stories, because unless you've lost your wits, you're going to look and say, well, it doesn't matter what my eyes are telling me. I know for sure there's no encampment there. There's nothing there. I know for sure how long we have to travel before we see anything like that. So if I'm seeing that now, it must be a mirage. It must not be real. But this is going to tell me all about that. This is going to be so fascinating. Oh, well, this is wonderful of them to send this so that I don't have to wait. I don't remember off the top of my head now what the story was about why I'm getting Unbound Galleys. But the other one, the other Unbound Galley, is even better. It was just the other day. I think it was yesterday. But I was talking about my irrational love of all things Viking. I can't get enough of the Vikings, old or new, and this is the newest one. I think this also comes out in the spring. This is a book about Vikings with probably the greatest title. One of the greatest. There's a murder mystery called that takes place around a clam shack on the seashore, and it's a murder mystery, and the title is "Curses Broiled Again." And there's a very angry lobster on the cover. That's a contender for best title of the year, but so is this one. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. This is by Tom Shippey. The subtitle is "Lives and Deaths of the Great Vikings," and the title is "Laughing Shall I Die." Oh man, oh man. So let's see here. Laughing Shall I Die explores the Viking fascination with scenes of heroic death. The literature of the Vikings is dominated by famous last stands, famous last words, death songs, and defiant gestures, all presented with grim humor, which is absolutely true, and allow me to use it as a flimsy excuse to highly recommend the Icelandic sagas to you for reading. Even in horrible English translations, I highly recommend them to read. They continue to be perhaps the world's greatest, not popularly known treasure of reading. But anyway, let us move on here. Much of this mindset is markedly alien to modern sentiment, and academics have accordingly shunned it. And yet, it is this same worldview that has always powered the popular public image of the Vikings, with their berserkers, Valkyries, and cults of Valhalla and Ragnarok, and has also been surprisingly corroborated by archaeological discoveries such as the Ridgeway massacre sites in Dorset. Was it this mindset that powered the sudden eruption of Vikings into the European scene? No, it was not. If that's not a rhetorical question, allow me to answer it. They were powered by boredom and by greed, but they were not, of course, the first raiders who were powered by boredom and greed. The thing that set them apart in imagination then and since is that there is something fatalistic in their mind frame. So, yes, they were raiders, but they fought in a way, they fought as if they didn't care whether or not they lived through the experience, and no one else fought that way. But anyway, I keep interrupting here because all I want to do is talking about Vikings. Was it a belief in heroic death that made them so lastingly successful against so many bellicose opponents? Weighing the evidence of sagas and poems against the accounts of the Vikings' victims, Tom Shippey considers these questions as he plumbs the complexity of Viking psychology. Oh my God, I want to drop everything and read this. Along the way, he recounts many of the great bravura scenes of Old Norse literature. Thank you. Thank you very much. Including the fall of the House of the Skorldungs, the clash between the two great lordships of Ironbeard and Longserpent, and the death of Thormod the Skald. One of the most exciting books on Vikings for a generation. Laughing Shall I Die presents Vikings for what they were. Not peaceful explorers and traders, but warriors, marauders, and storytellers. Okay. All right. All right, I'm going to calm down, I promise. But as you can probably tell, this is kind of catapulting to the front of the list. The only problem is architectural. So where on earth am I going to put floppy, unbound galleys on the ramparts? The rest of these can go in that middle section. But where are these going to go? I'm going to have to move. I'm going to have to dismantle one of those towers and put these at the bottom. And hope that they don't slide all over the place and bring the whole thing down on top of my head and kill me. Although you know that that's the fate that awaits me. And I'm not being grim like the Vikings were. I'm just stating as a matter of fact. It not only awaits me, it awaits all the rest of you too. Every single person on BookTube. The one thing that binds us in common you might think is a love of reading. Well, you're right, but you're only half right. There's another thing that binds us all in common, and that's that we all have the same last moment of our lives. In every single case, all of us are going to be either sick or healthy, young or old, ready to check out or not, when we are doing this and suddenly the bookcase tilts and our last thought is, oh crap. And then it's all over and we die happy. And anyway, laughing shall we die. Because the books have given us life, right? It's only fair that they should take it as well. Anyway, so we have two unbound galleys. One is The Waterless Sea, which is a history of mirages that sounds fascinating. The other is Laughing Shall I Die, which, oh my God. Oh my God. Then The Broken Girls by Simone St. James. Then France's Long Reconstruction by Herrick Chapman, about France in the immediate aftermath of World War II. Then we have the first two books of the Book of the Black Earth, a grim sword and sorcery fantasy series. Then Waiting for Tomorrow, translation of a French novel, and 4:30 Movie, a collection of poems set around a cinematic theme. So there you go. That is our mail haul for today as we continue our march toward the last haul on Saturday. So I'll wrap it up for now, but I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.